Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, with the climate emergency ever deepening, our team's been to a place that is in many ways leading the way. Costa Rica hosts 6% of the world's biodiversity, and it's cited as a leading light in reducing carbon emissions. Laurence Cuvillier is this week's reporter. She joins us now. Laurence, Costa Rica, often referred to as Central America's Switzerland. Do you think that's justified?
Well, Mark, here is an important fact. There is very little emigration in Costa Rica, while poverty and insecurity in other Central American countries put hundreds of thousands of migrants on the road every year. Most of these migrants seek to reach the United States, but Costa Rica has turned it into another option for them, especially for the Nicaraguayans who have been fleeing political persecution in their country. Costa Rica is a country with a higher GDP per capita than China or Brazil. Health and education there are free and of good quality, even if on the ground social inequalities are still glaring.
Laurence, thank you very much indeed. With no further ado, let's take a look at our report.
Do you dream of a country where the environment is the top priority? Where forests have been growing every year for decades? Welcome to Costa Rica, less than 0.1% of the Earth's surface, but a concentration of green ideas. We'll take you for a ride. In an electric car, of course. Our first stop, Curridabat, on the outskirts of the capital. The concept of a ciudad dulce, gentle city in English, was invented here. A city that absorbs more carbon than what it produces.
Everyone, let's take a handful of soil and check if it's not water saturated.
The key word in this county is regeneration. The inhabitants of Curridabat are taught natural techniques to enrich the soil of their own gardens, or are encouraged to contribute to urban reforestation. The city is building this big greenhouse where trees will later be grown.
We had this idea because we need to consume native plant species. Most of the time, imported species from Africa or Asia take over the vegetable market. So as soon as we're done with the construction, we'll start looking for strains of native species in the forests nearby.
Lorena is an agronomist, but at the time when she studied, she was taught to use fertilizers and pesticides to increase production. She learned from scratch everything about regenerative agriculture.
We all met while taking care of this garden, and now we have this project. We're here all the time.
Her garden is now full of tropical species, boosted by her homemade compost.
This compost bin was given to me by the county authorities, along with a course on how to use it.
Curridabat now has over 100 parks for its 65,000 inhabitants. The river flowing across the city became a biological corridor to bring back rich wildlife to the city.
Ciudad Dulce, or gentle city, is a vision of the world. And we try to adapt this vision to the city. The aim is to make room for rivers. We have a creek right here. And to bring back to the city native species that were here before and that were pushed out by urban sprawl. We want to tell them that they belong here and that we can all live together.
But this vision of the world is not new. Environment protection became a part of Costa Rica's history as early as 1949, when the National Power Company, ICE, was founded. At the time, greenhouse gases or climatic change were not concerns on the agenda, but the National Power Company was already promoting a reasonable use of natural resources. Thanks to that commitment, Costa Rica started using renewable energies as soon as they were invented. It was therefore no surprise when in September 2019, the president of Costa Rica, Carlos Alvarado, received the United Nations' highest reward for environmental action, the Champions of the Earth Prize.
This award is consistent with a legacy is consistent with what the generation of my grandparents and my parents had created for Costa Rica. Bold decisions in the past.
Now, not only is 99% of Costa Rica's electricity carbon-free, but the country is also able to produce twice the country's needs. Almost 8% of this electricity is produced here. Reventazon's hydraulic dam. The power plant is a worldwide example for good environmental and social practices. Aquatic wildlife is able to swim through and is protected from generators.
Preserving the natural water flow is very precious to maintain sporting and fishing activities down the river.
There's something else that makes Costa Rica unique. The country got rid of its army in 1948. The budget was rerouted to education, health and infrastructure. This singularity made colossal investments possible.
The key is to think ahead. We have been building this system based on renewable energies for 70 years now. All this time we've been searching for a way to balance our use of different resources. We're very lucky to have plenty of water, volcanoes, wind, and we have just started exploiting our solar energy potential.
Electricity that is available in charging stations all along the roads. Costa Rica has 70 open access points, which is more than enough to cover the territory.
The first thing you do is to plug the charger into your vehicle, and then you put your card inside, and you will see card accepted written down here.
This user is discovering how it works.
I bought my electric car 2 weeks ago, and I've only charged it 3 times. Since I stopped buying petrol, I saved something like 150,000 colones. That would be $300. That's a lot for me.
And what's the price of a refill?
For now, it's free.
Costa Rica has 2,000 electric cars circulating, only 1% of the total number of cars in the country. But last year, car sales fell, except for this sector.
It's another step towards a cleaner planet. We can produce clean energy in Costa Rica, so it makes sense.
The Vignette is 65% cheaper than with another car, and you are free from entail restrictions. Everything is done to make electric cars attractive because the car fleet is a dark spot on the picture of environmental performance. A third of the country's population lives in the region of the capital San Jose, and traffic is constantly jammed. But the future of electric mobility seems to be bright.
Our size is an advantage compared to some other countries that are much bigger and would need a very extensive network. Here, with an electric car with a range of 200 kilometers like the ones that you could buy 2 years ago, you can go from San Jose to the Caribbean coast or the Pacific coast and enjoy our beautiful beaches.
Beautiful beaches and a lush nature. Here we are in the tropical forest that seems to stretch on forever. Forests that haven't been here forever. Many of them were recreated thanks to the national effort of reforestation. In 1980, forests only covered 20% of Costa Rica's territory. Today, it's 55%. This is Ed. He is the one who rents these beautiful electric cars.
Welcome to Makenke, a spectacular place, part of the Green Circle.
Ed started working in ecotourism 15 years ago. His travel agency provides entirely green experiences, from the rental of electric cars to bookings. In places like this, an immersive experience in the jungle, close to wildlife. No air conditioning, no television, no mowers either, and locally produced food. Ed became friends with Eduardo, who started a green hotel business with his 6 children. Squeezing fresh cane juice is the traditional greeting ritual. Eduardo was only 10 years old when he arrived here. His family were jungle pioneers.
Those were virgin lands and mountains.
63 years ago, when I got here, they belonged to no one. You could decide to take as much land as you wanted. 500 hectares, there you go. And we also found the meat we ate directly in the forest. There were so many animals. Tapirs, opossums, monkeys. Then people started trapping these animals, not only to eat them, but to sell them. And so they started disappearing.
Within one generation, the forest had nearly entirely been destroyed, but then things changed.
My children started to tell me, "Dad, we must stop chopping trees. We will do tourism instead, because foreign tourists like forests. Dad, we must stop killing snakes. Why? Because tourists want to see snakes."
The family's extensive breeding farm became an organic cornucopia.
At first, it was hard because, for us, forests were like aliens. And little by little, our neighbors, who were all hunters, started to realize that we made more money protecting the forest and the animals than exploiting them. And so they started doing the same.
The diversified agriculture started coexisting with a tropical landscape. To grow and consume locally is one of the pillars of this new kind of tourism.
Tourism must show the essence of the country, and our essence here in Costa Rica is ecology.
And indeed, it seems to work with visitors.
Well, we've never been in a country like this with all the nature and all the wildlife that you see. It's amazing. We didn't know what to expect, actually.
In Costa Rica, 1/3 of the lands are protected. Costa Rica is a member of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. During the next United Nations Climate Change Conference, the group will advocate for compliance with what scientists recommend: to protect 30% of the lands and the oceans of the world. This would help absorb large amounts of carbon, but also to regenerate biodiversity.
There's a real difference between Costa Rica and other countries with tropical and primary forests. And it is the amount of wildlife that we have here.
In international organizations, Costa Rica is a strong voice to represent developing countries, often victims of climate change. Each year, Central America is hit by violent hurricanes that kill hundreds of people and destroy infrastructure and fields. But the region also suffers from periods of extreme drought that push thousands of farmers on the road to migration. For the next climate change conference, the Minister of Environment is planning to firmly advocate for far-reaching proposals and to raise her voice if need be.
Every single one of these destructive events is an enormous blow to public finances. Each time, we have to spend huge amounts to rebuild, so we have to borrow money and our debts grow. And I have to say, in my opinion, it's very unfair. We are the countries paying the price for this full carbon model. And we must find a way to stop that, collectively.
Latin America has not started its environmental transition yet. But Costa Rica is already far ahead on the road of ecological recovery. Saying goodbye to our electric car, we leave this country convinced it has a lot to bring to the rest of the world.
Laurence Cuvillier, our reporter, is still with us. Laurence, thanks for that insight into Costa Rica. I'd be interested in knowing what's the secret of the success of Costa Rica. Is there any more progress to be made? What do you think?
Well, Mark, there is still a bleak record with regards to its export crops like coffee, pineapple, bananas. Farmers still massively rely on agrochemicals. So Costa Rica is not yet the paradise in terms of of environment, Costa Rica is nowadays the country in the world which uses the most pesticides, with 52 kilograms per cultivated hectare. And these crops sometimes appear in protected natural areas without going through the due paperwork. Costa Rica is the first pineapple producer worldwide, with its surface, but its surface represents less than 10% of the French territory. And the Costa Rican government, environmentalist as it is, has yet to take a grip on that problem. And when it does, it can expect strong resistance from exporters. That being said, regarding the fight against climate change, Costa Rica remains among the strongest and most ambitious voices internationally. Let's listen to Carlos Alvarado, the Costa Rican president, who granted us an interview to talk about his country's ambition for the next UN climate change conference in Glasgow.
One of the central proposals that we will bring this November to the COP in Glasgow is the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. It is a call for each country to put 30% of their oceans and 30% of their land mass under protection. Why? Because science itself tells us that ecosystems and conservation measures are the natural solutions within our reach. In the oceans and the forests themselves is the capacity to regenerate the planet.
That's the president of Costa Rica speaking to Laurence Cuvillier. Laurence, this High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, does it have any chance to have these measures passed at the COP26 summit? There's a lot riding on this, isn't there?
Well, that's going to be very difficult, actually, Mark. Even if Costa Rica has strong allies in this coalition, notably France and the United Kingdom. But what do these three countries have in common? These are countries of modest size, where protection of 30% of the territory is likely to be properly planned and enforced. This is not the case for giants like China or the United States. And then we must especially expect that proposal to be turned down from other heavyweights like Brazil, where President Jair Bolsonaro has, since the start of his mandate, dismantled the protective mechanisms of the Amazon rainforest.
Laurence, thank you very much indeed. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to have France and the UK agreeing on something, which might happen given what you just told us. Laurence Cuvillier there with our report from this week. You can see it again, of course, via our website, france24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.